Good morning, folks, and welcome to the Rahul Nair Finance Show. You're listening to the Daily Deal Room, from startups to stock markets, where we decode the business buzz of the day, crisp, clear, and to the point.
Today is 17th September 2025. Before we begin, here's a quick disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not a buy or sell recommendation. Always consult a financial advisor before making investment decisions.
All right, so here's what's on the docket for today. We'll kick things off with the big corporate headlines, then take a look at the global economy, check out who's in the IPO pipeline, and then dive into the private markets. After that, we've got some key industry insights, and we'll wrap up with the latest startup funding report. Let's get started. First up, let's talk about the movers and shakers in the public markets. Some really big names are making some fascinating plays.
So what's with this number, 10.84%? Well, that is the brand new, much larger stake that India's state-run LIC now holds in the IT giant Tech Mahindra. You'd think that's a massive vote of confidence, right? But there's a catch.
And that catch is this. Tech Mahindra stock has actually dropped by 10% this year. So while the rest of the market seems a little bit nervous, India's biggest insurer is actually buying more. It really makes you wonder, right? What do they see that maybe others are missing?
Now, shifting gears over to the auto world, Tata Motors is hitting a bit of a rough patch. Their shares have been down for 2 days running, and it's all because their subsidiary, the famous Jaguar Land Rover, had to stop production. Why? They're looking into a cyber incident. This is a classic example of how digital problems can bring physical manufacturing to a screeching halt. And with no clear timeline for when things will be back to normal, that uncertainty is definitely hitting the stock price.
Some really big news for commuters in Mumbai. The city has finally, officially given the green light to bike taxis. You've got the big players, Ola, Uber, and Rapido, all getting their provisional licenses. The government has laid out clear rules for fares, which brings some much-needed order to the whole thing. For anyone trying to get around that infamous Mumbai traffic, this is a fantastic, affordable new option. The companies have just 1 month now to get their permanent licenses sorted.
And just a quick bite from the Foodtech space. One of the big listed companies has quietly rolled out a new app called Toing. The whole idea? Super economical meals. Right now, it's just a pilot program in a few spots in Pune, but it's a clear signal they're going after the budget-friendly segment of the market.
Okay, so let's zoom out from individual companies and look at the bigger picture. We're talking about the global currents. Think AI, autos, and currencies that are really shaping things on the world stage.
Kicking off with currencies, the Indian rupee is floating near a record low against the US dollar. What's behind this? Well, there's not a lot of foreign cash coming in, and the central bank, the RBI, is being what we call dovish, which basically means they're more focused on boosting the economy than on hiking interest rates. This has a ripple effect on everything from how much we pay for imports to inflation.
Now over to the EV market, where Chinese giant BYD has just hit a serious speed bump. The company just slashed its 2025 delivery target, taking it from an ambitious 5.5 million vehicles all the way down to 4.6 million. This news comes as the company's value has plummeted by an incredible $45 billion. Investors are getting really worried about their strategy of deep discounts and what it's doing to their profits.
And speaking of tech that's changing everything, let's talk AI. The board chair of OpenAI, Brett Taylor, has a really interesting take on all the excitement. He says, yep, we're definitely in an AI bubble, a bit like the dot-com era. But he's quick to point out that even though it's risky, it's also incredibly transformative. He thinks that just like the internet, even if some companies don't make it, AI itself is going to create massive, long-lasting value. And to make sure they have a front-row seat for that future, OpenAI isn't just making software anymore. They are jumping into the hardware game. The plan is to release their very own AI chip by 2026, and they're working with Broadcom to do it. The goal? To power their own AI systems, which are getting more and more hungry for computing power. This gives them a massive advantage. This brings us to a really fascinating and kind of wild question. As AI gets smarter and smarter, could we actually use it to solve one of the oldest problems in human history? Corruption? Well, believe it or not, one country is actually trying it. Everybody meet Diela. This is Albania's and the world's very first AI government minister. And its job is pretty incredible. To handle every single public tender, every government contract, and to do it with, and I quote, 100% corruption-free decisions. The dream here is to take human bias completely out of the equation and make the whole process perfectly transparent. It's a radical experiment, and DL has already been busy, issuing tens of thousands of documents since January.
All right, from a global AI experiment, let's bring it back home to the Indian public markets and check out the IPO pipeline. There's a huge fintech name that's getting ready to make its debut.
So the investment platform Groww is apparently getting much closer to its IPO. Word on the street is they're preparing to file their big document, the DRHP, with the market regulator SEBI possibly as soon as next week. This is going to be a huge one to watch, a real test of how investors are feeling about Indian fintech right now. Now let's turn our attention to the private markets. It's been a busy time, with everything from shocking scandals to company shutdowns and some really cool tech innovations.
First up, a massive scandal has hit the online gaming company Gamescraft. Their former chief financial officer is being accused of diverting over 250 crore rupees of the company's money for his own personal trading in the super risky futures and options market. This didn't just lead to huge losses, it blew the lid off some serious weaknesses in their internal controls.
And in other news, a story that kind of highlights just how tough the startup world can be. MyPickup, an EV startup that worked on a subscription model, has had to shut down after about 3 years. And this is even after getting backing from a well-known VC firm. It just goes to show how incredibly difficult it is for startups to find that long-term, patient money they need to survive and grow. The story of MyPickup actually leads us to a really important term you hear a lot in the startup world. What do you call a company that's making just enough money to keep the lights on, but it can't really grow and it can't pay off its debts? It's kind of alive, but not really going anywhere.
Well, they're called zombie companies. And this idea perfectly describes a huge problem in the current funding climate. You have a lot of startups that are stuck in this weird limbo. They're not dead, but they're not exactly thriving either.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. On the innovation side of things, the used car platform Cars24 is making a really smart tech move. They're integrating real-time speech AI from 11 Labs and Google Cloud across their entire network of over 100 hubs. This will probably help them streamline everything from customer service to employee training. It's a really clever use of tech.
Okay, let's pull back again and look at some key insights across entire industries. We're going to focus on two sectors that are going through some massive changes right now: auto and insurance. So you see this number, -9%, and it might look a little scary. That's the drop in passenger vehicle sales in India for August year on year. But here's the thing, there's more to the story. Industry experts are saying this isn't about people not wanting to buy cars. It's actually manufacturers adjusting how many cars they send to dealers. In fact, everyone's pretty hopeful that sales are going to bounce back big time with the festive season just around the corner.
And this next one is a huge deal. It's a major policy shift. India is now moving to allow 100% foreign direct investment in the insurance sector. The old cap was 74%. The big idea here is to bring in more global money, stir up competition, and ultimately get more people in India covered by insurance because we're still a very underinsured country.
And finally, let's wrap things up with our fundraising report. Let's see who's managing to raise money in this pretty tough market.
Okay, here's the quick rundown. A fintech company called PayLocal has raised $5 million in its Series A. Then we have Minax, which is an astrology platform, picking up 7.5 crore rupees in its pre-seed round. And over in health tech, PharmEasy has raised more debt. Now, this isn't for growth, it's to pay back an old loan from Goldman Sachs, which is an interesting move, especially after the company's valuation was cut pretty sharply.
And that brings us to our final thought for the day. It's kind of a big one. On one side, you have Albania betting the farm on AI to create a perfectly clean, corruption-free government. And on the other, you have a story like Gamescraft, where a massive fraud was allegedly carried out by a human being in a position of ultimate trust. So it leaves us with this question. As AI promises a world without human error and companies are still fighting very human fraud, where should we be focusing our energy on managing risk? On the tech or on the people? That wraps up today's episode of the Rahul Nair Finance Show, brought to you under our daily series, The Daily Dealroom, from startups to stock markets. If you like this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends, colleagues, or anyone who's into business and investing. We'll catch you tomorrow with more updates. Until then, stay curious, stay invested.